You are watching Macro TV, and in this episode, we are still busy with the basic model of the economy. It is Study Unit 2 and Chapter 2 in Fourie and Burger. In the first video, we said that we are introducing a Keynesian framework, and the focus is on total expenditure. So we'll be looking at all the different components of total expenditure, in this case, focusing specifically on the consumption element that is known as the capital letter C in the familiar C plus I plus G plus X minus M equation. Now, having a look at some data, it's clear that consumption expenditure by consumers or by households make up the biggest share of aggregate spending. It is also a very stable share of aggregate spending compared to investment that can fluctuate quite widely over time, and exports and imports that are influenced by events in the international economy. So consumption is quite important, and we want to look at the factors that influence consumption and how everything fits together in a consumption function that's part of aggregate spending. Now, the definition is that we are looking specifically at expenditure by households on consumable items. Those include goods and services. Now, the book explains this at great length, and it's worth having a look at how expenditure is measured. Now, for our purposes, we are focusing on expenditure on final goods and services. Now, consumption, as such, depends on a number of factors or is influenced by a number of factors. First off, it's of course income. You can't spend if you don't have income, and we are specifically looking at real disposable income. Disposable in the sense that you first need to pay tax before you can dispose of your income. So the YD is the definition of disposable income, and it's the income level minus taxes paid. Consumption can also depend on wealth, and it's positively related to wealth. If you're more wealthy, you are able to consume more. It is negatively related to the average price level. So if prices are higher, consumption tends to be less. It's also influenced by expectations, by people's habits, by demographic factors, and a number of other things. So those are the big drivers of consumption. So just a bit more detail on the idea of real disposable income. It's clear that the real disposable income, if it increases, it leads to an increase in consumption. But if tax increases, that reduces the disposable income and leads to a decrease in consumption. There is also a part of the disposable income that is not consumed but will rather be saved. So we distinguish between the concepts of marginal propensity to consume and marginal propensity to save. The idea is that if you receive additional income, some percentage of that gets consumed and the balance will be saved. So in that sense, the MPC plus the MPS, those are fractions that need to add up to 1. To put all this together in the form of a consumption function, you'll see that we start off with the basic idea that consumption is a function of these two terms in the equation. First off, there's the intercept A, which tells you it's a level of consumption that is independent of the level of income. So even if income is 0, there's still some consumption that takes place. And that is basically just for people to survive. Basic food, basic clothing, basic shelter needs to be consumed for people to survive, and as such, that makes up the intercept of the consumption function. In addition, the consumption function also depends on disposable income. Some fraction of disposable income is consumed. The parameter B tells you it's the slope of the consumption function, and there is a positive relationship between the level of consumption and the disposable income. Disposable income, as we've said, it depends on the level of income minus the taxes paid, so you can substitute y minus t into the value of yd over there. And we also know that this level of taxes is the tax rate multiplied with the level of income. So again, you can substitute lowercase t multiplied by y in the place of the capital T over there, and then just simplify the equation and get the consumption function in the form that we see over here, where A is the intercept, the minimum level of existence, the minimum level of consumption that you need to survive. 1 minus T tells you the influence that taxes is going to have on income in order to get disposable income. And B is the marginal propensity to consume, the additional consumption from an additional level of income. If you have a look at the consumption function as it's shown in the graph, it shows the intercept intersecting with the vertical axes, and it also shows the slope there, which is positively sloping. If income increases, consumption will increase. So to conclude, consumption is a big and important part of aggregate expenditure, but it's not the only part. Next, we will have a look at investment.